Ladies and gentlemen, I guess most of us like sports. Maybe not actively participating in any sports, but watching sports on television. It's fun to see your favorite athlete, your favorite team, just to play, just to give the best of themselves, just by sitting in the couch and watching television. But the best part of all of that is the next day you meet friends, family, you are at work, and there the real discussions happen. People go sometimes all in, explaining what went wrong in their national football team, and that if only they were there as a trainer or just as a top player, they would have changed things, and of course everything would have been better. The great thing about these very interesting and fun to have conversations is that everyone participating is aware of the fact that whatever they say, it's just a bunch of nonsense. We just love to talk about the sports that we like. We love to talk about the team that really is close to our heart, the cyclist that just barely not won, and what he or she should change the next season or the next match or the next competition in order to be better. We all know that whatever advice we have for these top players doesn't make any sense and will not make any change on the field, on that bicycle, or on the tennis court. I'm not going to say anything remotely useful to make Ronaldo into a better football player. When we now switch the scene and we go to music, there the discussions become more serious. How easy it is to find people online that say like, Paulini is better than that pianist and that pianist is better than that pianist, and you have all our opinions, and of course I get it. Music is dear to us. It's in a way closer to our heart than sports is. But when it comes down to this one musician, Glenn Gould, probably, if not for sure, one of the most exciting players of the 20th century, then people start to have a different tone in their voice. Oftentimes the critique is not from a sense of I'm just defending, I'm actually pleading in favor of my favorite artist, to hopefully convince you to listen to him or her because I want you to have the same experience as I have. Of course, all these discussions are around that. It's a positive discussion. But when Glenn Gould is on the table, sometimes the tone shifts to a little bit more sarcasm. Like, what was the guy doing? He was a charlatan, some people even say. And I always find it remarkable that when it comes to Glenn Gould, nobody talks about his very fast performances. He had an unbelievable technique. The critique is always there where Glenn Gould takes a slower tempo than his colleagues. And for that he's been criticized till today. We have that in common. Both Glenn Gould and I are famous for the same thing. We both are criticized for our slow play. But today I have something special for you. Because there is one recording for which Glenn Gould is not criticized. One recording for which he will be remembered in the future without any doubt. It's for many people the recording that if they had to choose one recording to take on that famous desert island, they would take that recording. And the funniest thing of all, it might be very well the slowest recording Gould ever played. I'm talking about this recording that you probably all recognize only from the image alone. It's so popular that I can only play 5 or 6 seconds because otherwise this video will be taken down. I'm sorry to interrupt this recording. I know for a fact that most of you will just love this recording. When Gould starts the first note of the Goldberg Variations, this is 1981 recording, you are just captivated. There is something in the room that is really unique. It is his tone. It is like narrative. It's like his speech that he brings into the music, but it's also his super slow tempo. I will take you through some very cool storylines in this video. This video will not be only about the unique relationship that Gould and I have, all the things that we have in common. We would have been great friends when he would still be around. I was barely 10 years when he died. But in this video, I also will connect Glenn Gould to Frédéric Chopin. I will connect Frédéric Chopin to Beethoven, Beethoven to Bach. I will connect Chopin to Bach. I will connect Glenn Gould to Bach, and I will make sure that after seeing this video, you will think of Karl Czerny in a very different way. But before we dive into all of this, do me a big favor, subscribe to this channel, like the video, that helps big time in the algorithm. I would love to go to 100,000 subscribers. It's a huge leap for a channel like me. We're still far from that, but we built it step by step. Also, I have to thank my Patreons for allowing me to make these videos. And if you want to see more of this, check out our Patreon page. There are going to be major updates there. So no better time to join our Patreon community than now. So without further ado, let's dive into all of this. I've made in the past a few videos already on Glenn Gould, and those were videos on music that he played that people like today still talk about. I mean, how cool is that? Can you imagine another musician that people would talk about 50 years after making a recording in the same way, like still puzzled why a genius musician like Gould made these recordings. So I made these videos simply for the reason to show that what Gould was doing there. Here, the Appassionata. We have another video about Brahms. You can find these videos on my channel. This is just a back end of my YouTube channel. Here, Glenn Gould's Hammerklavier Sonata. Just type in the title and you will find that. And here you have one on Mozart's Alla Turca. Some of these videos are close to 100,000 views. So this is something that really lives with people. But all of these videos have in common that, generally speaking, Glenn Gould is being criticized really hard for taking a different tempo compared to the mainstream tempo. And now, before we dive into the Goldberg variations, just this is an important point. When people criticize our work, our Beethoven symphonies, and just go online and type my name, and you will find like the craziest formats of critic. I mean, we are flat earthers. We just dogmatic people. We don't take facts seriously. It's sometimes really unbelievable what I see, because the reverse is true. This recording is not a flat earther recording. It's just based on the metronome marks. If you play the recording, you can say like, I don't agree with your theory, but the frequencies per minute are met here. So we base our recording on facts. That's a metronome mark. A metronome mark is just a fact. It's a frequency per minute. You can read the metronome in two ways. You can either do it in the modern way, where you take one tick for the note value that's mentioned in the metronome mark, or you take two ticks, like in the old days, and still today many physicists, just as if they read a pendulum, they just take two swings for one. For whatever reason, people criticize that as being like a fairy tale story that is based on nothing. With Glenn Gould, it's different though. He didn't base his recording on metronome marks, yet he's been criticized for following in his own taste, and not like in little words. The Appassionata, he was criticized even so much for that later he said like, I just hate the piece. I mean, can you imagine Glenn Gould? He was untouchable. He could do whatever he wanted, and yet he felt the need to just not distance himself a little bit from a recording that, if you listen to the Appassionata, and regardless of your opinion, Glenn Gould didn't hate the Appassionata. That was played with like an unbelievable mastery of expression. Yet the tempi that he took for all these pieces, whether it is the Appassionata by Beethoven, it's the Brahms concerto, it's the Mozart alla Turca, and the Hammerklavier Sonata, are close. In some cases, even spot on whole beat. And so there we shake hands again. Not saying that he took any notion of the metronome marks that were present in the editions that he played from, or were not present in the editions that he played from. I have no idea, but just by instinct, when he just opened his mind to be creative with the music, he discovered tempi that were very close to what we strongly believe are going back into time, like in the 19th century, and if not even spot on what the composer really had in mind. His Hammerklavier Sonata is just magnificent. Also, his Appassionata is just unbelievable. I sometimes have a hard time understanding why people are so opposed to something that's just different and are not able to just feel the enormous emotional power that is in the music when played like that. Now, I'm not saying that Glenn Gould is in all cases like going back into time, reconstructing music. I just said he didn't. But in some instances, miraculously, just by following his musical instinct, and you can do that all yourself. You don't need to be Glenn Gould. It's unbelievable to see how quickly people will be transformed to this whole beat, what we call our metronome practice, this whole beat universe that is still here. And it's no surprise because all of that is so close to us. The tempi that are a result of reading the metronome in our way are just human tempi. No surprise that they are still very close to us. But let's come back to the Goldberg variations, that famous opening. I have here a book, as you can see. This is just one volume. I have two of these, and this book contains all the keyboard works. I don't know if you can see it. It's very heavy, of Bach in an edition by Karl Czerny. It's beautiful. This is the French edition made by Madame Veuve Launay of, I think you pronounce it like that. But you have, of course, also the German edition, which is this one. There is a difference between the German edition and the French edition in the metronome marks. And if anyone has more information on the the history, in fact, of these editions, that would be very, very cool. The thing is that the metronome marks here in this German edition are between brackets. In the French edition, they are actually not. Karl Czerny was known for making more than one metronomization. Also for his Beethoven works, he did that. He had 4 or even 5 editions. The 5th one, the last one, unfortunately for Simrock, he didn't finish. It was very cool what he was doing there because he gave like his own touch. We would say today, like from a perspective of an urtext edition, that's not done. You don't change the first editions or the manuscript or whatever, but sometimes it's very difficult because manuscript versus first edition versus first edition, that changes, like little changes, sometimes major changes. And what Czerny did there in the last edition that he made, did not finish, was sometimes slightly altering the legato bows or even the pedal markings, yes. So that's cool because then you knew exactly in that time how Czerny played Bach. He was like, it was his instructive edition, so to say, but he didn't finish that. But we know for all these editions that he made from Haslinger 1828 until the last one, that he changed metronomization. It's not a lot, but he kept fine-tuning all of that. And now many people will say today, like, yeah, but that's a proof why the metronome marks is just a personal thing. We don't need to be like so strict as you tell us to be, because even Karl Czerny changed throughout his career, his life. So if even he was changing it, why wouldn't we be allowed to change it? Now, first of all, you are allowed to do that. You do whatever you want with music of the past. The thing that we here do on this channel is not to tell you what to do and what not to do. The thing that we do here, the research that we do, it's just understanding the metronome marks. Like when Beethoven marked the 5th Symphony with 108, what did he mean by that? Was it like a crazy fast performance that, like in the case of the 5th Symphony, is still possible in the first movement, but in many other movements it's not possible? For instance, the 8th Symphony last movement, you have to play 17 notes per second. Was this what he intended? I mean, go online and read what some people think about it. It's just crazy. Like, yeah, it's what this guy had in mind. Like the impossibility, he was foreseeing the future or whatever. I mean, or was it not? That's just the only thing that we try to do. Reconstruct what the meaning of that metronome mark is. And from there, of course, you go your own way. But you cannot compare our time, our position with Karl Czerny. Karl Czerny lived in that time, not of course in Bach's time. When you talk about Beethoven's metronomization, he was there. He was for his entire career looking, searching for that ideal tempo. Just compare also Czerny with Moschle's metronomization and see how in many cases they just find the right or the similar tempo. But sometimes even Moschle's re-metronomized some works. And so the reason that they did that is not that they were just all over the place, and also for them it was like today this tempo, tomorrow that tempo. That, by the way, If you hear that, like musicians take a different tempo in the morning and in the afternoon, and then, yeah, it's possible. But professional musicians don't. You won't hear Andras Schiff playing a Beethoven sonata in New York in a different tempo compared to Amsterdam. That's why? Because these performers bring everything on a balance, on the same line, articulation, phrasing, their technique, fingering. It's all related. It all goes back to your tempo floor. Therefore, tempo is super crucial. Changing tempo just a little bit is changing everything. It's also the reason why Karel Czerny wrote, like, the slightest deviation of time destroys the entire meaning of a composition, with which he meant not like, okay, there is only one tempo, but when you change that even slightly, you change the entire nature, the character, the outcome, the conversation, so to say, of that piece drastically. And so the fact that he kept changing, fine-tuning the metronome marks that he gave for Beethoven's work is only to be seen as a proof of how much they cared to find that ultimate right tempo. The legacy of Beethoven was on the shoulders of Karel Czerny. Don't forget that. This guy must have been aware of that. And so the differences here between the French and the German edition, that's something that I really would like to know the history about. But we're talking here, in this case of the aria, about a very, very minor difference. So 72 quarter note, here Andante Espressivo, that's of course done by Czerny, and in the French edition you will have quarter note 69. So that is pretty much related. And if you see the fingering, they also are a little different, but definitely taken from the same edition. Now, before going back to Glenn Gould, there is something else. This edition, not the German one, but the one that I have here. So this French edition was also in the possession of Frédéric Chopin. I don't know if this book was in his possession. Could be. That's the cool thing about owning old stuff. And by the way, I didn't buy this. This was a gift from my colleague Lorenz Gradient. That's the co-author of our book. And yes, it's coming. There is a huge update now on our Patreon channel. If you want to know all the details of where we are with the book, there is no better way than just go on our Patreon channel. Just support the project for a few dollars or euros per month, and then you will have a lot of podcasts and updates. And the last update I did with Stefan is about our book and other projects, but the book was in the center of the focus. And so this was a gift from Lorenz Gradient, the co-author of my co-author of the book. But the cool thing about the French edition is that was also used by Frédéric Chopin. And so here there is a book published by Jean-Jacques Eigeldinger. For those of you who don't know who Eigeldinger is, he is one of the most renowned, best known, and probably also best researchers in connection to Frédéric Chopin. He wrote a book, Chopin vu par ses élèves, which is in English also available, I think, with the title like Chopin as seen by his students or pupils. If you want to have something to start your journey back into time, that's one of the must-have books. It's unbelievable what information it's there. It's like mind-boggling. And so he also published, Mr. Eigeldinger, a book, Le Clavier bien tempéré, tome 1. So that is the well-tempered clavier, part 1. So 24 préludes et fugues, 24 preludes and fugues. Édition annotée par Frédéric Chopin. How cool is that? So the annotated edition by Frédéric Chopin. And the cool thing about it is that if you read further in the introduction, he says, la présent facsimile reproduit est une édition du premier livre annoté par Chopin lors de la formation d'une élève tardive, Pauline Chajaron. So basically saying this is a facsimile reproduction of an edition that was annotated by Chopin during the lessons of one of his last students, Pauline Chajaron. Chajaron, I don't know how to pronounce that. And then it goes on. And the annotations he made are partly coming from les indications d'exécution par Czerny, dont il a pris connaissance à travers la publication parisienne de la veuve Launay. In English, that would say like the annotations come from, especially for the first prelude and fugue, done by Czerny, 1837, from which he had a knowledge, or that they were in his possession because of a publication, the Paris publication of Launay, so the widow of Mr. Launay. That's this edition. So that's cool. So that would have been cool if this edition was owned by Chopin. Probably not, but that doesn't matter. So it's cool. You see these old editions, and then don't think this is on IMSLP. It's only the German that is on IMSLP. What you have here in this edition is the performance practice of Karl Czerny, of which he says that comes from Beethoven. And people don't realize enough that this Czerny-Beethoven tradition goes back to Bach. I mean, of course, tradition is relative. I speak about that a lot. You have not such a thing as Karl Czerny was a student by Beethoven. Beethoven was a student by Neve. Neve was a student from Homilius. Homilius went back to Bach. And so Beethoven, by that reasoning, Karl Czerny played like Bach. That's, by the way, how many people today also criticizes our works, because they say, like, yeah, we have recordings by early 20th century piano rolls, and that's like Paderewski, he was a student of Cortot, he was a student of a student of a student of Chopin. So by definition, Cortot played like Chopin. And so since your version of Chopin doesn't correspond with Cortot, we can say for sure that your version is not what Chopin had in mind. Well, this is a kind of argumentation that doesn't make any sense. In that sense, I could say like Karl Czerny played like Bach. And you can see in front of your eyes, it's not the case. But what is interesting, also in the Cortot recordings, if you consider that to be a performance practice of that time, like Cortot played like in the 1920s, 1930s, don't quote me on that. I don't know all the dates by Alfred Cortot. Maybe it was a little bit later. Of Paderewski for that matter. It doesn't matter. But they played as people were playing in their time. The only thing that you can learn from that performance is like how people played in that time. And the interesting thing is the same thing as here. You can learn how Czerny played Bach. Even his notion, like that information from the well-tempered clavier or from the other Bach works, he as much as his memory served him, he took it from what he remembered how Beethoven played it. But you can learn from it. You can learn from it in the sense that we cannot get closer to any Bach tempi than through Karl Czerny or Griepenkerl or the people of that time. They spoke to people of the 18th century. They spoke to Beethoven. Beethoven had lessons from Neve, who was like a second generation Bach student. And so these connections are super interesting. And so it's really cool to play from an edition of which you know that Chopin even took it so seriously as to hand copy the notes and all the marks and the fingerings and the tempo indications, metronome marks, that Karl Czerny gave. That also shows what status Karl Czerny had in that time in Europe. And as I said at the beginning, at the end of this video, we will have a different idea of Karl Czerny. But now we come, of course, to the crux of the story. This recording that I can unfortunately not play throughout the entire video, and actually also fortunately, because if you play that, this is so strong. This music is so strong here that you wouldn't be able to hear my voice. I mean, that would be, of course, a big plus. You can better listen to the Goldberg variations played by Gould than listen to my ramblings. But this recording is on the exact same page as the Appassionata, as the Brahms first concerto, as the Hammerklavier version of Glenn Gould, as the Mozart alla Turca. It's on the exact same page. Why? 72 here, 69 in the French edition. What is Glenn Gould's tempo? On average, 33 point so much, like 33, 34. Exactly whole beat compared to the French edition, a tiny little bit slower even compared to the German edition, if that metronome mark is really going back to Karl Czerny. I guess so. But again, if you know more about it, leave it in the comments. I really would love to learn more about this. And so now you explain me why so many people would take that recording, this one here, especially because of the aria, especially because of the beginning. Fact of the matter is that the aria is played exactly in whole beat and we love it. Dramatic pause. But it's true. Why is it so difficult? Or in other words, why would we be so hard on Gould's Appassionata, first movement, Brahms concerto? You know, I made videos, you check them out. Why do people, so many people, not all and of course not you, but so many people today have so much criticism on these recordings that are also in whole beat and not on this Bach-Goldberg variation? That doesn't make any sense. So, do you want him to play this twice as fast? We can do that with computer renditions. It's not so hard, but nobody is ever thinking of that. Go online and start a Reddit post like, hey guys, we should actually double the speed of Gould's aria and the Goldberg variations. I guess you won't survive that discussion. And so do you see the different things? Overall, the reason why we could accept this and even we open our souls for that rendition, everybody who listens to this aria will be touched. Even when people say, like, I hate Glenn Gould, yeah, just play it. There is no escape. The first note is so well timed. The second note comes so right on time that even in spite of this slow pulse, when you do it right here, the brain just shuts itself off. You cannot think anymore. It bypasses all your intellect. Or in my case, what's left, according to some people. And you just listen. The reason that that's still possible, and that it also works with the inventions, the videos that I made, I'll try to link them in the description box. I will forget it, but you can find out like the video that I made, Czerny, a pedantic destroyer of Bach. Just check it out. We recently made even a video on the small preludes, in connection to a research done about, whatever, Czerny's Impossible Metronome, something like that, is because of the fact that we don't have virtuosity expectations with that music. Whereas if we go to Beethoven and you play the Appassionata like that, or you play the Hammerklavier Sonata like that, there we have these high, like expectations, like these people that were there high in the sky, doing things like Chopin and Beethoven and Liszt and Schumann, all like were the greatest virtuoso players of all times, not realizing that what we think they could do is humanly not possible, but still that expectation is there. And then comes Glenn Gould with the Appassionata, and everybody said, like, oh, this is a scandal recording. He must have hated the piece. By the way, he says it himself, and it's unbelievable with Glenn Gould. Like, he just played his audience. So if he would live today, he would have a YouTube channel of 50 million subscribers. He would just know how to do it. But in the case of the Goldberg variations, that's a different story. And so it's either one or the other. And again, that's fine. I get it. The implication is huge. What we're doing, it's a paradigm shift. It's a subtitle here. There will be the subtitle of our book, a paradigm shift in classical music. It is. So I get it. People will need time. But the cool thing is, when you really would die for Glenn Gould's Goldberg variation, I have to say Glenn Gould's Bear variation. That paradise, that musical paradise, so to say, is waiting for you also here. It's the same thing. It's the same experience. What happens there also becomes possible in Beethoven, in Chopin. You just have to open your souls for it. Shut your brain off. That's the best advice I can give you. In many instances, I think, we think too much, right? Sometimes just experience things, enjoy things, go all in, meaning with the heart. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Was a little bit all over the place, but I think an important video, and maybe not so much all over the place. It's all connected to each other, and it's cool when you can connect Glenn Gould, like doing something that is related to Czerny, that's related to Beethoven, that's related to 18th century Bach tradition. I mean, how cool is that? And you get it all for free. So check out our Patreon page because the patrons are making this possible. For instance, now to record this video for you on a Monday afternoon. And check out also our Beethoven. There's more coming. There's an upcoming Kickstarter for the first box, just like this one, with the complete keyboard works, everything. And you will be just shocked to see how many pieces of Beethoven you may not know. And for those of you watching here and are new and say like, Wim, what you're saying now, this is like nonsense. Well, I promise you, when you listen to the variations that you don't know, first of all, some of them are very innocent. Some of them are mind-blowing. It's unbelievable how Beethoven could just compose for the different groups that he had in mind. But for the pieces that you don't know, our tempi, all taken from metronome marks given by Moschles or Czerny or Bülow, but in whole beat will sound very normal. The fact that we just have difficulty sometimes listening to these tempi is just conditioning. We are conditioned to listen to faster performances. Not double. What you hear today is not just single beat. Single beat is a fairy tale. That's dogmatic. That's a little bit flat earther way of thinking. We take something as a position, as a starting position, as a foundation of which we actually know that we cannot realize it. And yet we stick to it. Well, now that's really all I've got for you. Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.